Okay?
Yeah.
So we're beginning a new Perek. We're holding Perek Yud in Kohelet, the 10th chapter of Kohelet. Zvuvei Mavet, Yavish Yabia Shemen, Rokeach Yakar Mechochma Mikavot Zichlut Me'at. The pasuk is a little bit cryptic. If I translate it literally, it may not be well understood, but that's what we need to do first. He's talking about flies. Zvuvei Mavet, flies of death, or dead flies. Flies that sometimes fall into our soup. But the worst part of it is if it's not a soup, if it's shemen rokeach, if these flies, or these things that we detest, that we don't like, fall into a very good smelling oil, shemen rokeach. The effect of zvuvei mavet in a good smelling oil is to spoil the smell. Yavish. It starts to make it ba'ush, smelly, bad tasting. Yabia, shemen rokeach, it will be noticeably come out the effect of the fly or whatever goes into the oil from the fly, from the other insects. It will tend to spoil the good oil. Yakar mechochma mikavod sichlut me'at. And then he says that still, nevertheless, the chochma, the chacham, who has knowledge, who has kavod, mikavod sichlut me'at means that it appears to be that the chacham is greater than the fool by a little bit. But what is the connection to the flies? So the commentaries explain that as much as the chacham is greater and is more respectable and honorable than the one who's a fool, nonetheless it does happen, unfortunately, at times that the chacham is affected by something that he has done that is not proper, that is not nice, that does not look right in the eyes of people. And even somebody like that, a small little fly, a sichlut me'at, a small foolish act, can take away the chokhmah, can take away his kavod. So, of course, the more honorable a person is, the more chacham he is, the more is expected of him. And he has to be extra careful that no fly should enter his personality. In other words, that no pgam, nothing should affect his reputation. Because even something small, a foolish act, having done something in public, or even not in public, but if it comes out in the open, it could ruin an otherwise good reputation. This is the first pasuk of Perek Yud, but in reality, as Salomon does sometimes, he continues from where he left off. And he left off on how it is possible for somebody that has done so much good to lose all that good because of one sin. Person has done many mitzvot, many good deeds, and because he gets angry, because he loses control over himself, right, and begins to yell at his wife, or begins to yell at someone else, all the credits that he has earned, all the merits that he may have, may be lost, may be gone. Person can grow to great heights, can elevate himself to great heights, and he can lose it. He can fall down. As you know, it's harder to go up a mountain than it is to come down. You can come down very quickly. Very quickly. So people who have done teshuvah, people who have risen to great heights in working on their midot, on their character, to wanting to be better people, can easily lose it, as they say in English. They can just lose it by doing something which is very foolish. So all that shemen rokeach, all that good smelling, shemen oil, all that good reputation can be wasted. Chalila, if a person does something besichlut, or something foolish. This is not something that happens only once in a while. It unfortunately happens in our times too. We've seen people rising to great heights, and I don't want to mention names, it's better not to. People in high positions that you may know of today who have been in high positions who are now in jail because of an accusation. It makes no difference if it's false or not. In the end, everything's b'shamayim, and it doesn't look right. You know, somebody who's in a high position, supposedly he's respected. People, you know, he wants people to continue to respect him even after he retires, after his death. But look how a person's reputation can go down completely, almost overnight, by the fact that people reveal something that has been not known, something about him that is not too nice. You know, things that are hidden eventually come out in the open. So it doesn't help to hide. In the end, it will be revealed. It will be disclosed. The rabbis tell us the reason he also uses the metaphor here, the mashal of a zvuv, is because the Yetzer Hara is compared to a zvuv. The rabbis tell us in the Midrash, Yetzer Hara domel zvuv. The evil inclination is compared to a fly. In the same way that the fly comes and you do this to it to drive it away, it will come back. So even if you succeed to drive away the Yetzer Hara, don't think that it's gone. The Yetzer Hara will attempt its best to come and to bother you, to pester you, to try to weaken you in any way that he can, continuously, regularly. Don't think that you've done away with it. When it comes to alcohol and drugs, there are people who have a relapse. You've heard of that? In other words, they sunk to the lowest levels of addiction of drugs or alcohol, and they've gotten help. They got treatment, as we say in Hebrew, leshakem otam, to rehabilitate them, and they're out of it. They're cured, but they've had a relapse. It comes back. The Yetzer Hara is therefore compared to a zvuv. Just because you won, just because now you're in control, just because everything appears to be fine today, it does not mean it will be so tomorrow. Husband and wife sometimes make peace. Sometimes they say, let's let, what's the saying? Bygones be bygones. Great, it's beautiful. Everything is rosy. He buys her roses, and she gets him a new tie. Anyway, they make up. You don't think it can happen again and get into a fight? Of course, it happens all the time, unfortunately. As long as it's a small fight. As long as it's not too big. As long as you can control it. But things can get out of hand because they lose themselves. It's normal. It's natural. I don't want to say typical, but it can happen because unless you really, really take this Yetzer Hara and keep it down and you control it, then it won't control you. But if you can't control it, if you don't know how to control it, he can come back. That's his job. That's why it's compared to a fly. And this fly we're saying right now causes a lot of trouble. How many people over here would if served a bowl of soup and a fly fell in, would say no thank you? Huh? Well, some of you. Some of you would probably take out the fly. No, yeah. Okay, that's a bowl of soup. It's easy to just throw away the bowl. What if it fell into a pot of soup for 50 people? Would you still throw it out? You wouldn't tell anybody if it happened in the kitchen, right? Or if it's not a fly, what if it's a spider? Ooh. What if it's a bee? Yeah? You know what the Chinese do? They throw out the soup and they eat the fly. Yeah. Anyway, you don't want to eat the fly, but there's nothing wrong with the soup, you should know. Rabbis tell us it's perfectly okay. Because it's pagum. I mean, there's no real taste, and any taste that may be there is minute, and that minute taste is also does not enhance the food. If anything, it may spoil it. In other words, it's not something that you really have to be concerned with, unless, of course, we're talking about such a small thing that you can easily throw it away. But not everybody is, of course, happy to see that, and they'd rather get rid of it than have to deal with eating something that appears to be spoiled. It just appears to be, even though it's not necessarily spoiled. So what do? Because of the possibility, Kohelet tells us that a Chacham may make a mistake. Somebody's reputation could be ruined because of some things that he may have done in his past. What now? Well, first of all, before we take action to repair the damage, you want to make sure these things don't happen to begin with. There is a famous mashal in Hebrew. What is the difference between a chacham and a pikeach? Chacham means an intelligent person. Pikeach means somebody who is smart. What's the difference between intelligent and smart? Smartness is someone who's sharp. It's more than just intelligent. A chacham, if he falls into the mud, he knows how to get out. He's a chacham. He fell into the mud. A pikeach makes sure he doesn't fall into the mud to begin with. He avoids it so that he doesn't have to go through it. Very important difference between a chacham and a pikeach. So we want to be pikrim. So how do we make sure things don't happen to begin with? So he tells us in the next pasuk, Lev chacham limino v'lev ksil lismolo. Look at the difference between a smart man and a fool. The heart of the smart man, and here even though it says the heart, it really means his mind, his thoughts, his approach to life. He's always to the right, and the heart of the fool is to the left. The heart is always in the same place. I mean, what does it really mean? It's a metaphor. It's telling us that chachamim and ksilim are very, very opposite from each other. They do things in a very, very opposite way. A chacham attempts his entire life to do things right. He's not corrupt. He's not crooked. He's not a liar. He tries to do things limino, to the right. To the right is always to the right way, to the correct way. We use our right hand to do things, not the left hand. Why? Because the right hand is the normal thing, the normal hand to use, the hand that is the most effective. Usually, for most people, the stronger hand. So the metaphor here is limino, meaning l'shem shamayim, l'shem matachlit, for the ultimate purpose, for what Hashem expects of us. The heart of the chacham is always to do what's right. And it's interesting that right in English means both the direction and the correct thing to do. Interesting, right? Limino, to the right. Whereas a fool does things lismolo. It's always to the opposite direction of what's right. Why? The simple reason is because the chacham is not interested in what is good for him, what brings him pleasure, what makes him happy. He's interested in doing whatever the right thing is to do. And the ksil, the fool, will always be making mistakes because he's more interested in doing what pleases him. And that might not be the right thing to do. It may lead him astray. It may get him into trouble. A chacham, therefore, who does everything limino, does not have to be afraid that one day he will make a mistake. And we've spoken a little bit about this before, how tzaddikim have a special protection from above, that they should not make a mistake if they're careful in that particular area. Whoever is careful in kosher, very careful in kosher, why should a mistake happen to him that, God forbid, he should eat something not kosher? Hashem will make it so that even if he was not familiar with a particular product, somebody will call him at the last minute. Somehow he will find out about it. Somehow he will not eat it. Why should he make a mistake? A mistake is not something good. We're not happy. We don't want to make mistakes. So if Lev Chacham is always on his own, he keeps himself to the right. He always wants to do the right thing. He always wants to go the right derech, the right path. He doesn't have to be concerned that some mistake will happen to him. Lev Ksil is always lismolo. He's always doing the wrong thing. He's always not interested necessarily in what's best and what's right. So therefore, he will stumble. He will make mistakes. This is an important follow-up from the previous pasuk. Should it happen that a chacham, a good person, ruins his reputation, he obviously must have done something wrong to deserve it. He obviously initiated something. He must have not been something 100% to the right. It was maybe something to the left. Maybe he took a bribe. Maybe he took a kickback, as they say, or something, whatever, something that is not 100% right. Because after all, the public demands more of people who are in position of power. So that is why they have what's called conflict of interests, all kinds of laws and rules that you have to sign. If you're working for the government, I remember they used to ask me, to sign all kinds of papers that you don't do something that is in conflict, even in appearance. What could be in conflict of an appearance? A client takes you out to lunch. By us, it's a problem. Because you might treat him differently. You might treat him differently. In business, it's normal. You take each other out to lunch because you want to continue to do business. Even then, who knows? It depends who you're taking out to business. If you're taking out the worker who makes the purchases by you, instead of purchasing somewhere else, what if yours is more expensive than the next company? But you took him out to lunch, so he wants to buy by you. And his boss does not know that. That's not right. His job is to buy wherever he can give the biggest profit to his boss. And here he's being, in a sense, bribed. He's getting all kinds of gifts for the holidays, a trip to Israel, maybe round trip, hotels, just so they can continue to do business. But maybe that's not the best deal. It's a problem. It's not ethical. You understand? This happens all the time. All the time. Now, some people don't mind. Okay, you have a relationship with him. I like that, the boss says. As long as it's not a big difference. That's part of doing business. Lunches and gifts. But some people, of course, will mind. And that may not be ethical. So that's what we're talking about here. If somebody does not do something that's ethical, it doesn't look right. His reputation. And sometimes it will ruin it like a zvuv, like a fly that can ruin some good oil. All right. Let's go on to the next pasuk. וגם בדרך כשהשכל הולך ליבו חסר ואמר לכל שכל הוא. Now, how do you recognize a fool? You recognize a fool by his conduct, by his speech. And when we say by his speech, we mean that he calls others fools. In other words, he himself is the smart one, but he calls others fools. So you can tell, Shlomo Melech says, by the way people act, they maybe have something to hide, maybe they're embarrassed or something, and therefore they call others, you are the fool. He is a fool, not him. They don't want to take the blame. They are in denial. Rabbis tell us, Kol haposel bemumo posel. Whoever disqualifies others and says, oh, he's like that, he's actually using something to describe someone else that he himself has. The blemish that he says others have, he himself has that blemish. Because when somebody accuses somebody of something that is totally not true, it's because that blemish is in him. So psychologically, that's what's prompting him to call others names, to call others with some blemish that in reality he has it. So everything from the conduct that he has, that he shows, from the speech or from the words that he says, indicate that he is the sachal. Libo chaser, as he says. You can tell from the way he's walking or conducting himself, what his deficiency is or what his problem is, what flaw he has in his character. And either you interpret this literally that everybody can tell he is, or the second pirush that says he calls everybody else a sachal. Rabbis tell us, you have to be very careful when you tell somebody off that you don't have that defect yourself. Otherwise, your musar, your rebuke is going to be not effective. Right? Somebody tells somebody else, oh, don't be so rough. And he himself is rough. Father that tells his child, don't lie, and the father himself is a liar. The words are not effective then. Father tells the child, why don't you go pray and the father himself doesn't pray. He cannot educate the child this way. Education is by example. That's one of the best ways to educate someone, is to be yourself an example. You can't expect people to follow as you say. They want to follow as you do, not as you say. So obviously in this case, person who embarrasses others, person who makes fun of others, it says a lot about him. It's a tremendous, by the way, it's a tremendous defect in character for a person to stoop to that level and put other people down. It's not only the wrong thing to do, it's not only a sin, it shows something about the personality. It's foolish to do so too. All right, next pasuk. Imru hamoshel ta'ale alecha, mekumcha al tanach ki barpe yaniach hataim gdolim. Very important pasuk over here. There's two interpretations, one Rashi, one the other commentaries, as to who the moshel is that the Shlomo Melech is talking about. The ruach the moshel ta'ale alecha. In other words, if the moshel, the one in control, the ruler, comes upon you, don't let go of your place. A very, very difficult pasuk to understand. What is he talking about? The ruler coming upon you, what place shouldn't you leave? So that's why we need sometimes the mefarashim, the commentaries, to explain what he's talking about. Ruach HaMoshel, if this is a continuation of the previous pesukim, he's talking about that moshel that is trying to be moshel on us. That is the Yetzer Hara. We spoke about the beginning of the perek here, of last perek. Actually, it wasn't in the beginning, it was towards the end, that there is a king who attempts to conquer a city. And that was a mashal for the Yetzer Hara conquering or attempting to conquer the human being who's compared to a small city. So if it happens that the Ruach HaMoshel ta'ale alecha, that if he unfortunately succeeded to take over, that this Yetzer Hara succeeded in bringing you down, don't lose hope. Mekomcha al tanach, don't let go of your place, don't let go of your good character, of all your accomplishments. Ki marpe yaniach hataim gedolim. There's a cure that can undo and erase all kinds of sins. That's very good to know. And why is he telling this to us? Because it may be possible, chas v'shalom, that a person may fall so low, having been discovered. Now he's really in bad shape, his reputation is gone. Or even if his reputation is not gone, even without that, the fact that he succumbed, nichna, he succumbed to the Yetzer Hara and he did something terrible that he never thought he would do. Don't give up hope. Why not? I mean, why say not don't give up hope? Because it is possible for people to say, well, I already did this, I'm already a rasha, chas v'shalom. If, as we say in Hebrew, in kvar as kvar, the guy says, I already ate something tarif, chas v'shalom. Well, already ate something not kosher. Well, then not keep Shabbat. I actually once asked someone who was trying to be a little bit more religious. He had a problem with eating kasher because he was a truck driver. And he goes cross country. And he sometimes stops off. He wants to eat lunch. So over time, I think he overcame this problem. He bought himself a little bit, he bought food with him. I don't know how he warmed it up. I think he had a problem with how to warm it up. But anyway, I think he overcame that problem. But he had a problem because, he wants to eat. You're going 5 days across the country. What are you going to do? So the Yetzer Hara, of course, is at work here because it's not a big problem. Today there's kosher food everywhere. You go into a Ralph's, you can find so much food. You can't be picky. I mean, if you want to eat kosher, you just have to eat whatever there is. And there's cereal, there's so much food. But it's obviously the Yetzer Hara, he wants to have a hot meal. There's no kosher restaurant. So anyway, so that was his weakness. So we were talking, and I tell him, why don't you wear tzitzit? Tzitzit is very cheap. You can get it for a few dollars. You wear it underneath your shirt. Nobody even sees it. And it's a very powerful mitzvah. It protects you. So you know what he said? How could I wear tzitzit if I don't eat kosher? I feel bad. I feel I'm a hypocrite. Do you know that that's coming from the Yetzer Hara? What does one thing have to do with another? You do whatever you can. Isn't that true? No, not if the Yetzer Hara is speaking. If the Yetzer Hara is speaking, it says, you're a Rasha. You don't keep Shabbat. You don't keep Shabbat. Therefore, don't put on tefillin. What's the connection? There's no connection. It's only the Yetzer Hara. You do whatever you can. The Yetzer Hara beat you. The Yetzer Hara brought you down. It doesn't mean that you lose everything. Oh no, that's it. I'm done with it. No, you're still Jewish. You're still obligated. You still need to fulfill as much as you can. And B'ezrat Hashem, there's hope. There's a marpeh. There's a cure to that which went wrong, went awry. You made a mistake. There's a marpeh. It's called teshuvah. And that teshuvah, yaniyah hataim gedolim, can release you of all the hataim that may have occurred since day one for many, many years. But this is the Yetzer Hara talking. He's a moshel. He takes over. He says, no, this is the way you are. Very important idea. The Chas v'Shalom person should never think that there's no hope and that's it, that he there's no way for him to do anything else right because he's already on the wrong track. The next pasuk, or the next pirush I should say, on Ruach HaMoshel, it's that it's talking about Midat Hadin. Ruach HaMoshel, Rashi says, he's talking about Ribono Shel Olam who rules the world. What if it ever happens, Chas v'Shalom, that the Ruach of the Moshel, in other words, the spirit of Hashem, the Midat Hadin, the attribute of justice, is upon him. He's suffering. Things are not right, not in Parnassah or in health matters, and it's things one after another. It's not just bad masal. It's Ruach HaMoshel, Ta'aleh Alecha, you figure, why be Jewish, Chas v'Shalom? So tough. It's difficult. Everything is wrong just because you're keeping Shabbat. That's what you think. Don't let go your good midot. Don't let go your good ways because of Midat Hadin. Realize that the harshness of Midat Hadin, of the attribute of justice, is marpeh. Yaniach hataim gedolim. It always releases you from previous sins. It's always kapara. It's always an atonement. That's the way to look at harsh judgment. That's the way to look at difficult times. That if anything, it's good. It's for some benefit that we don't know. But doesn't mean, no, that's it. God does not exist for him. Where was God in the Holocaust? People complain. How could he allow some of this? It's ignorance. It's all ignorance. People don't understand why Holocausts occur. We've had more of them, not just this one. They didn't learn Jewish history. They don't understand what the Torah says when Am Yisrael does not go in the right path, what will happen. They don't have an understanding of some of the most basic and fundamental Jewish principles. That yesh din veyesh dayan. There is justice, there is a judgment, we are accountable. One is accountable for his actions. At some point, one has to pay for it. So if one sees or experiences this kind of a situation with Ruach HaMoshel, with the Midat of justice is upon him, be careful. Not to let go, not to lose control, and to be hopeful that things will get better, of course, because in the end, Hashem loves us, and everything that happens to us that appears to be difficult, harsh, and bitter is all a marpeh. It's all a cure. Next pasuk is a very fascinating pasuk. A lot is said about it, and that is why there are several ways of interpreting it. And in many ways, I believe that the words that he says in this coming pasuk describes a lot of what he has already said before. But he changes the wording, his style, but pretty much the message is the same as he said before. So for those of you who have been here from the beginning, you will recognize what the dilemma here is, what dilemma he has, just that he's saying it in a very poetic and very unique way. He says, Yesh ra'ah ra'iti tachat hashamesh kishgaga sheyatsa milifnei hashalit. I saw something terrible under the sun. I observed something very bad. Ra'ah, something that bothered me, or something at least that bothers many people, not necessarily him. What is that something so bad? What is that something? It's so bad. It is like a mistake has occurred by the shalit, by the ruler. Now, what is it? What mistake and what shalit? So, simple meaning is that Chas v'Shalom, it may give the appearance as though the shalit, Hashem, has made a mistake. This is something that I have observed that may give the appearance, the wrong appearance, of course, and it's so bad that it appears kishgaga sheyatzam lifnei shalit. You can say shalit is talking about a regular king too, that he's made a mistake, he's issued a decree, and nobody's going to take back the decree. Like Achashverosh. En lehashiv. He went out, they had to bring back the books. Something that's signed with Tabat HaMelech, that's it, with the seal of the king. There's nothing. No, the king does not make a mistake. It came out, it came out. In American law, at least, there's something called double jeopardy. You know what that is? Somebody goes to court, they find him innocent. They found him innocent. It was not a hung jury, they found him innocent. Later on, we discovered some more evidence that he's guilty. They cannot judge him for the same thing. It's called double jeopardy. But it's a mistake. No. It's done with. It's a shgaga sheyatzam lifnei shalit. Why should we allow it? That's the law. I don't know the reason for the law. Can I just tell you that's the American law? Even though it what?
According to Torah.
Yes, it's also true. You're right. Even though I don't know if it's based on that, but according to the Torah, it all depends on what the issue is. Okay, what the issues are. I mean, if we find out that we didn't have proof before, now we have proof, that's different. But if based on the evidence that we do have, a decision was rendered, we cannot undo the decision. But if we didn't have the evidence and now we do, so depending on the circumstances. But you're right. So what's the problem here? This ra'ah that has come out from Shamayim, or what appears to be a ra'ah to us, is obviously meant for a reason. Just that we don't know. So we attribute it as a mistake. What could be this mistake? So according to this interpretation that it's talking about what appears to be a mistake, he gives some possibilities in the next pesukim. You want an example? It says, how could it be shenitan hasechel bamromim rabbim va'ashirim b'shefel yeshevu? How could it be that the fool is the president and the one who's smart is the secretary? That's the one way of saying it. How could it be that this guy, I'm not going to mention names, how could it be of all people this guy is the president? How could it be that of all people this guy is the mayor? He should be washing dishes in El Coyote. You know what that is? The restaurant. Or doing something else that is more, playing soccer, or or behind a cashier. What is he doing in the shilton, in power? Natan nitana sechel bamromim, the sechel, the fool, the ahbal, as we say in Arabic, the one who's ignorant, the jahil. Huh? You also have that in Farsi, huh? Jahil, yeah. The ignoramus is put in the position of power. And Bamromim Rabbim, in other words, Rabbim, he has a lot of power, he has a lot of influence. Ba'ashirim b'shefel yeshevu, and all the rich and all the prominent people are sitting low. How could it be that those who don't deserve it apparently are there? Those who do deserve it, who are more qualified, are not there. This could be about jobs too. You go for an interview, you don't get the job. The guy who doesn't have a degree, the guy who dropped out of high school got the job. You know what they tell you when you come for a job sometimes? You overqualified. But why not? What's wrong with that? He gives another example. Ra'iti avadim al susim, besarim olchim kavadim al haaretz. I saw slaves who used to be slaves, now riding the horses, And those who were ministers now are walking like the slaves, like the servants. Things have been changed. Those who were in the bottom are now on top. Those who are on the top are now at the bottom. Could you understand that? How could that be? So this enigma, this puzzle that he has observed, he doesn't answer over here, right now. He's spoken about it in the past, that everything is min shamayim, obviously, and he's going to talk a little bit about how things are there for a reason. But the problem is that when we observe them, we can't figure it out. And because a lot of people observe these kinds of things in their life that don't make sense, their emunah is weakened. And that's why he calls it ra'at. It appears to be like a mistake. Is this possible? And therefore, if one looks at it as a mistake, and it's not a mistake, he may get the wrong impression that there's no hashgacha. There must be, because there is no chas v'shalom hashgacha, divine providence. Otherwise, how do you explain this? Of all people, he should get the job, and he should not get the job. Does that mean maybe there is no hashgacha? It appears like a mistake. So we're gonna see what he says after that soon. But before we see how he elaborates a little bit more on this, I want to give you the second pirush. The second pirush is also an important pirush, and that is something very, very dangerous, very, very bad, and that is ishgaga sheyatzah milifnei hashalit. There are times that people say something, and having said that something, a big mistake has happened. And there was a big wrong has happened. Some great damage has been done through the speech, through something that has come out from the shalit. You know what they say? You control your words as long as you haven't said them. Once the words have come out of your mouth, they control you. You have to be very careful with what comes out of the mouth. Lashon hara, terrible sin, to talk about others, to ruin other people's reputation, is one of those examples that the commentators say he's talking about over here. That it's a ra'ah, that it's something so terrible, when people mistakenly, of course, or even intentionally or whatever, say something that can be very hurting. But it's not only the lashon hara. Rabbis tell us to be very careful not to curse anyone. Curses can come true. Don't take a curse lightly. Same way we don't take a blessing lightly, let everybody bless you. You never know. Maybe that blessing will come true if it's a propitious moment, a good time. Same thing, don't let anybody curse you because you don't want to be cursed. Because even though that person is a no one, their curse, maybe there's a malach. The Zohar says that when somebody curses himself or his own family, there's a malach that says amen. You have to be careful. Where do we see this in the Torah now? In last week's parasha, with Yaakov and Rachel. Rachel stole the trafim, the idol of her father. Yaakov did not know. Lavan confronts him, blames him, accuses him. Yaakov says, whoever took it should not live. They say that affected Rachel's life. It shortened her life. Had he known, of course, he wouldn't have said something like that. How do we know he did? Someone to explain, how do we know Yaakov learned the lesson? When his kids came back from Egypt the first time, told of their dad, Abba, this ruler in Egypt is giving us such a hard time. He's accusing us of spies. He took away Shimon. He could have easily cursed the ruler. Had he cursed the ruler, he would have been cursing his own son, Yosef. Don't curse, you never know. And we're going to see what happens in the next pasuk to somebody who does do it, nevertheless. So these are the two interpretations of the pasuk of how sometimes something terrible, inadvertently or whatever, can come out, can happen as a result of not being careful with our language. And the second pirush is the appearance that sometimes we see things don't make sense to us. Don't make sense to us because obviously we don't have a direct line with Hashem to ask Him, why are things like that? We make assumptions and they are sometimes, many times, the wrong assumptions. oh, it's a mistake, it can't be. No, it's not. There's no mistakes come down from above. Yes?
You mentioned about allowing other people to bless you.
Yeah.
What if the person is your enemy and you realize that he's not actually, it may look like he's blessing you, but in actuality he's cursing you. David HaMelech actually mentions it in one of the Tehillims. He says his words were smoother than butter, yet they were curses. He mentions that there are such individuals that in actuality are not trying to do you a service, but in actually trying to harm you. So what should you do in that case? If someone is, you know that the person is not, he doesn't have your best interest in mind.
Right, but what is he doing? He's saying
coming
something.
to bless you.
Yeah.
He says, but in actuality...
Yeah, but no harm can come out from that. Even all that you have to know is that his words of praise or his positive remarks are not really intended to be so. And therefore be careful of him. He's trying to chaplusi you. He's trying to flatter you, right?
Not flatter.
Yeah. In other words, it may not be real. That's all. That's all he's saying. In other words, it may not... All you have to do is be careful with those remarks. Don't take them, seriously, because you know that it's not coming from the heart. But you don't have to be afraid of him. Good words are said. You can say, Amen. Let it be so.
But you mentioned also that you should never look into the eyes and some of the other things where...
Oh, that's somebody else. That's somebody who has an ayn hara, an evil eye.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same,
Yeah, well, obviously you want to avoid these people. That's something else, yeah. But sometimes you can't avoid certain people, they're your relatives, they're close to you. So, you wear a chamsa. You do whatever you can. Yes?
So what if, like a family member or a friend gets upset and does curse, just for the moment? So what do you do with that? What is there to do?
You have to tell them off. You have to tell them that it's terrible to curse, that it's not good. And you can tell them the next pasuk. We'll get to that. What happens to people who curse others? You can tell him that, and then I think he'll stop it. You'll see. Yeah. Anyway, that is what the rabbis tell us, Brit Krutala Sfatayim. Brit Krutala is saying that there is like a Brit, a covenant, an agreement with the lips. Whatever they say can come true. In other words, the words are powerful, whether they're a blessing or a curse. So you have to be careful with what is being said. Okay, so now that we've explained the other pirush, that appearances sometimes are deceiving, we don't really understand what is going on, and we have to realize that there is still hashgacha, even though it appears as a mistake, it's not a mistake. Now he tells us what will happen to those who did do the wrong thing, whether it was a curse, whether it was bodily harm, whether it was the enemy who gained power over us, right? What happens, because after all, these Pesukim are also talking about Am Yisrael, according to Yonatan ben Uziel says, Am Yisrael sometimes is seen to be at the bottom. I think that was the other Pirush. Yeah, we will see it soon. That it appears to be that Am Yisrael is at the bottom, and the Reshaim are on top sometimes, and that is for some reason, right? It's not just because we're at the bottom because that's where we're supposed to be. No, if we are smart, if we are so educated, if we're doing things right, we should always be on top. In the war times, Am Yisrael was on top. So obviously, there's something wrong here. Shlomo Melech tells us that what we see at any given time can change in the future. So even though the bad guys are on top, there will be a time that will come that these bad guys will be at the bottom. And those who are at the bottom, who we were talking about before and complaining that they should be on top, there will come a time that they will be on top. In other words, if we're talking about empires, which is one of the Pirushim, that sometimes one empire takes over another empire. One was at the bottom, now they're on top, the other one is at the bottom, next time they're up. Up and down, different people taking over. You have Greeks, you have Rome, right? You had all these empires that were up, and they've come down. those who were at the bottom took over. In the end, Hashem eventually will make a cheshbon. In the end, Hashem will balance everything out. And those who were enemies of Am Yisrael, those who caused us a lot of harm, who were causing us harm when they were on top of us, they will come down, crashing down. And we will see it. What do you think is going on in Iraq today? It's been going on for many, many years. They're killing each other. You think that's just because they don't like each other? Why not? There's a cheshbonot. Before Mashiach comes, we have a tradition that Hashem settles all his accounts with all those who've been no good. Before Mashiach, therefore, there's a settling of accounts. And of course, the Holocaust is also a form of settling accounts with us. Unfortunately, it's sad to say, but that's what it is. So there's a settling of accounts where things are taken care of, even though they appeared in the past not to have been taken care of. And some claim there was a mistake. No, it was not a mistake. But eventually things are taken care of. Which leads us to the next pasuk. But actually, before we go to the next pasuk, maybe we should spend just another minute or two on the situation today in Israel. Look at Israel today. You don't have to go back in history. For a number of years, we were controlling the Arabs successfully. They were afraid of us, afraid of the Israelis. And now they're not so afraid. Baruch Hashem, they're still afraid a little bit, but not as much. What resulted in intifadas? They got up, and they gave us a hard time. They're giving us trouble. That is also mishamayim. In other words, here you have a situation in our lifetime where you can see there were better times where we were in full control of the situation, and now we're not in full control over the situation. So you have Yishmael causing problems. I mean, for those of you who are over 30, over actually a little bit more, 40, look at the world as in the past, 25 years. What has happened between communism going down, communism falling apart, right? Iran becoming a crazy country. I don't know what's another better word for it, It was more or less stable. Now it's really wacko. Yeah. Look at everything. I mean, look at the world. Look at the economies of the world. Things are happening. Something is happening. And this is part of our tradition. That right before Mashiach comes, things are going to settle. For things to settle, all kinds of pieces will be moved around the board. And that's what's happening today. So Shlomo Melech tells us in the next pasuk a very, very powerful statement. Chofer gumatz bo yipol uforetz gader yishachenu nachash. If you dig a hole, a pit for somebody to fall in, you may fall in it yourself. There's a saying like that in various languages. What you do to others will happen to you. Chofer gumatz. So those who have done things to others, yesh din v'yesh dayan, there will be judgment. Midah keneg midah, everything is measure for measure. It will come back. It will come back at you. Don't think you'll get away with it. Chofer gumatz bo yipol, he will fall into it. That's a very, very important idea, because even though we don't see it in our lifetime, it will eventually happen. Something will happen in eventuality. Quick story that is similar to what he's saying here. There was once a landlord in Eastern Europe during the time of the Chafetz Chaim that was not too compassionate on a widow and her kids. She couldn't pay the rent anymore. She was a widow. And he wanted to evict her. And the community came and told her, listen, we'll help you out with the rent, don't evict her. So this went on for a little bit of time. As much as the community can, they helped the landlord with the rent. They couldn't. They stopped paying him. He didn't get anything from the widow. So what did he do? He removed the roof of this house. He didn't want to force her out. He removed the roof. And as a result of removing the roof, the rain, the snow, the wind, it was too unbearable, and that compelled them to move out. They couldn't, you can't continue to live without a roof. When they came and told the Chafetz Chaim this, he says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Avi Yetomim V'Dayan Almanot, as the Torah says. He's the father of the orphans, and he's the judge of the widows. I'm sure this man will not get away with it. Something will happen to him. Okay, years went by, nothing was happening to him. He was richer and richer by the day. He was doing well. Everything was going well for him. So they came and asked the Chafetz Chaim, you say, where's this Dayan? Yishdin v'yesh Dayan, you say? He says, be patient. Who says it has to happen today? At some point, it's going to happen. There's no such a thing as him getting away for doing something like that against orphans and the widow. That's a very, very sensitive area. 25 years later, after this incident.
Was the Chofetz Chaim still alive 25 years later?
I don't know if he was alive. I don't know if the Chofetz Chaim was alive yet. I don't remember this, if it says if he was. But 25 years later, this man died in a Magifa. There was a plague. The man died. And it was such a terrible plague that people did not want to touch anybody who died from the plague. So he died in the street. And he sat dead on the street for a long time. Nobody wanted to approach it. You know, this is a plague, contagious. And guess what happened to his body? It snowed on it. It rained on it. Exactly what he caused to happen on the widow and orphans was happening now to him on his body. That went unrecovered and unclaimed for a long time until his father, who was over 80 years old, had no choice, could barely move, but he had no choice, and he had to drag his son's body from the street to have it buried. In other words, we don't understand why it happened 25 years later. Maybe he had some merit, but eventually something happened. Something would happen that will deal with his honor, that will bring about his death. Of course, he died before his time. And it had to happen in such a way through a plague. Who knows? We don't know the reasons for it. But something happened. People are not old enough or don't live long enough to see the course of all events from day one to day, whenever it happens. We're not able to see the whole history at once. We can look back at the past history and see what has happened to past events, but as we live, we can't see everything. And therefore we think, oh, how could this be? You just wait. If you were able to see the end of it, you would see how everything happened. Chofer gumatz, therefore bo yipol. He says, that's the case. That's part of our tradition. You pay for it, for whatever you do unto others, either in this world or in the world to come. But many times in this world. And the reason he says you will fall in the same, or he will fall in the same pit, is because everything is midah keneged midah. It's a measure for measure. In other words, things don't happen out of the ordinary. They are related to whatever is due or coming to the person. A person drowns in the ocean when he's 35. Drowned. And you ask yourself, well, why wasn't it from a heart attack? Why wasn't it from a snake bite, which we're going to see next? Why drowning? There's a reason. The rabbis tell us that even though we don't have the Sanhedrin today, and we don't have the 4 death penalties that they had the authority to execute, those dinim still apply. There's all kinds of accidents, chas v'shalom, that occur that relate to some sort of judgment. And if somebody is burnt up in a fire, if somebody dies from an overdose, oh, it's a mistake, the doctor made a mistake. No, there's no such a thing as a doctor making, they make mistakes, yes. But that was from Shamayim. A person who's not supposed to go does not just go because of a mistake. It doesn't happen. These things don't happen. The only time, for the most part, a person can lose his life, even though it was not meant for him to die at that time yet, according to his mazal, is either he put himself in danger, he's a soldier going to war and stepping in a mine. What can we do? He's supposed to live to 84, but he went when he was 18 and a half. That's part of life, part of military warfare. That's one. A second case which is similar, he put himself in danger. He did something that was dangerous. It doesn't have enough merits to protect him from the danger. A hold-up. If you're held up, don't try to fight back. Because man, a human being, has free will, the Zohar says. He's not an animal. He has free will, and for one to be saved from a human being who has free will, you need a lot of merits. So don't take your chance. You may not have enough merits. Yaakov in Pashat Vayishlach is concerned about that. Katonti mikol hachasadim, he says, Esav is coming after me. Yaakov, what are you afraid of? You have a promise from Hashem, he'll take care of you. No, this is a human being. And he has merits. He has kibud avayim. I don't know if I have as many merits. He has a right to be concerned, as Zohar says. Why? It's not an animal. A lion won't attack you. He has no permission to attack a human being that has a tselem Elokim on him. So attacks by animals is all purely mishamayim. But be careful, don't put yourself in the hands of a human being. Unless you have great merits, like some Jews had in the Holocaust, the Nazis' gun jammed on him. Yeah, that was Nes Min HaShamayim. That's a miracle. Hashem interceded. Guns don't just jam. You know? What if he jammed and he took another gun, that one jammed too? That's a greater miracle. But these things have happened. That's because they're the exception, not the rule. Be careful from makom sakana, from a place of danger. Don't take a chance. Therefore, don't drink and drive. Don't oversmoke. What do you expect? Hashem should protect your lungs? Give you good lungs. Take it. Smoke 3 packs, don't worry. Hashem will protect you. No, it doesn't happen like that. People can commit suicide. Don't put yourself, or don't do to yourself something that's dangerous. Other than that, everything's been pretty much min hashamayim. Everything that happens and why it happens and the way it happens. So all those that caused Am Yisrael harm will fall. So this applies to them too. Anybody who Chas v'Shalom did something to somebody else and did not do teshuvah for that or repaired it, he will have to pay for it. There's so many stories, there's stories about butchers. Butchers can be really not so righteous, let's call it. And there was once a story with a butcher that somehow fell off the roof, I think, got killed, and the dogs were eating him up or licking his blood. And they all came running to the rabbi, look what happened to this very unfortunate situation. He says, no, this guy was feeding the community taref for many years. What does that have to do with the dog? Well, the Torah says, basar basadeh trefa lakelet tashlichun oto. Any meat that's not kosher, you're supposed to give to the dog to eat. You can't have it yourself. Since he didn't give it to the dog, now the dogs are getting their share. In other words, the rabbi was saying, it's not a coincidence that the dogs are after him. It's min hashamayim. Let the Chevra Kadisha come and grab. No, before they even came to take him away, they were already there. Right? Everything's min hashamayim. Every little thing like that, we just don't know the reason, but we have to believe that's min hashamayim. So therefore, chofer gumatz bo yipol, at some point, whatever the person did to someone else, it will come. It will come after him. And the same thing is with Am Yisrael, unfortunately. It's coming to us, whatever is coming to us. If we did not follow the Torah mitzvot, then eventually, unfortunately, it will affect us. Uforetz gader yishachenu nachash, whoever breaks down the barriers of halacha, that's one pirush over here, will be bitten by a snake. Even though you could say this is following the first words, that whatever you do to others, in other words, if you break the fence down, you will be bitten by the snake. In reality, this second half is talking about a different idea, that one has to be very careful with barriers that were set up by the Chachamim. Even though it's not in the Torah, it's by rabbinic decree. We have to respect rabbinic decree as much as we respect the Torah, even more so than the Torah. The decrees of the rabbis are very important. They're there for a reason. And whoever goes against those decrees, breaks down the barriers, will be bitten by a snake. In other words, so the bite of a snake is significant. Why a snake, not a bear? Maybe snakes are more common than bears, right? You have to go to the mountains, to the forest, right? So to be bitten by a snake obviously is there's a deeper idea behind it too. The snake, what it represents ever since Chet Adam Arishon, from the first sin involving a snake. So there's obviously much more to the snake than I'm just saying. Bitten by a snake. What kind of a snake? You know, there's a snake that strangulates. There's a snake that is poisonous. There's all kinds of snakes. The fact that a snake comes and bites, and unfortunately it happens a lot in Israel in the summer. It happens in many countries where there's a lot of snakes, that in certain seasons, a lot of people get bitten by snakes. You have to be careful. But since most of the time it's anyway, min hashamayim, you're not just stepping on a snake. The person who was bitten, even if later he was cured, they gave him the serum or whatever it is, the antidote, nevertheless, to be bitten by it was min hashamayim. In the leg, in the hand, some people were bitten in the face. All of this is min hashamayim. Why was he bitten in the face? Because he poked his head into the bush? No, it has nothing to do with it. It's min hashamayim. That's where he needed to be bitten. Not everybody gets the lesson from it, but it's all min hashamayim. I'm going to tell you a quick story of how Hashem protects, of course, the big tzaddikim from the plots, from the one who wants to be chofer guma, because what we said so far is that it will happen to him what he did to others. Now I'm going to give you a story that what happened to the Rasha is even before he succeeded to do anything to the tzaddik. That's a story that happened with the Rambam, a famous story. There was a king who was issuing decrees against the Jews, and the Rambam came to the community and decided, you know what, I'm going to tell everybody that I'm a doctor, and maybe in this way we will be able to help the situation. He was a great doctor. He succeeded in healing a lot of people. The king found out about it and says, I want you to be my personal doctor. Don't worry about it. No more decrees against the Jews. All right, great. Personal doctor. He helped the king. King had some disease, and he recovered because of the Rambam's help. As always used to happen, unfortunately, the Goyim were jealous, especially the Goyim who wanted to have the highest position. Here the Rambam had the highest position. So they tried to convince the king, nothing helped. He was a good friend of the king. Until one time, one guy told him, the king, listen, if you don't kill this guy, this Jew, we're going to rebel against you. We're going to get everybody to rebel against you. You're going to lose your position. So the king got scared and says, okay, what should I do? I swore to him. I told him that I won't hurt him, I won't hurt the Jews. He basically had sworn to the Rambam that he won't do any harm to the Jews. So he says, okay, you don't have to do anything. Just give instructions to the Rambam that he should go to the guy who has a furnace. A furnace, you know what a furnace is, a big oven in the ground, where they prepare cement or whatever. And the instructions that this cement guy will get in the furnace is that whoever comes and asks him the question, did you do what the king said? Throw him inside the furnace. So whoever comes and asks the guy from the furnace that question, he will know that the instructions are from the king. That guy you throw in. So the king tells the Rambam the next day, listen, do me a favor, go ask the guy at the furnace if he did the instructions of the king. All right. Anyway, so the Rambam is headed in that direction, and all of a sudden somebody stops him in the shul. We need a minyan. Can you help us? Minyan? He said, I have to go to do what the king says, but wait a minute. This king is more important than that king. Let me go to the minyan. So he goes into the minyan. After he finishes with the minyan, somebody comes over to him, Rabbi, I need your help. Baruch Hashem, Brit Milah today, I want you to be the sandak. How could you refuse something like that? Please come. So he came, he was a sandak, and after the Brit Milah, he has to sit down to the Saudah, to have a meal. Anyway, time goes by. In the meantime, the minister who had told the king what to do figured by now the Rambam is dead. He went to check on the furnace. So did you take care of what the king asked? He threw him immediately into the furnace. Yeah. Anyway, it was getting late. The Rambam said, well, I got to take care of the king's request. By the time that he came, of course, to take care of the king's request, and he asked, did you do what the king has said that you should do? He says, yeah, look down there. When he came back to the king, he says, the king was surprised to see him. And the king realized that Yesh Borei Le'olam says, your God makes miracles for you. Your God protects you. And ever since, he decreed that no one should dare hurt another Jew in his kingdom. A famous story to show us how Hashem protects us, of course. And for those who did get hurt, there will be a time that they will get it back. And that's how we finish with the last pasuk over here for today. The next pasuk is really a continuation of what we just said. Masiya avanim yatzev bahem, one who transports stones, who plots against people using stones, he's going to get hurt through the same stones. Boke'a etzim yisachen bahem, one who chops down wood to hurt people through the wood, he will be in danger through them. It's pretty much, even though there's different interpretations here, the basic idea is the same. No matter what instrument you use, no matter what means one uses to get to other people, in other words, to hurt other people, in other words, it's going to come back after him. Everything is midah keneged midah, everything is measure for measure. The only problem that we have is really one little big problem. For those of us who understand this and believe in it, we don't always see it. And we need to remember that the hashgacha of Borei Olam, the hashgacha, the divine providence of Hashem in this world, prusa al pnei harbe dorot, it is spread out over many generations sometimes. Not in 10 years, not in 15 years. There's something called reincarnation where people come back and pay for their sins then. There's all kinds of circumstances that Hashem is able to exact punishment from those who deserve it. So even though we don't see it, eventually we will see it. And that's what the Zohar says, that right before Mashiach comes, we will begin to see many, many things that we didn't understand all along. Az yimales chok pinu, then our mouth will be full of laughter and joy, and we will sing the praise of Hashem in realizing that all along Hashem did not abandon us. Hashem was always with us, and what we suffered was because biglal chataenu galinu me'artzenu, because of our sins we were exiled. We will understand it better then. It's like a movie. Sometimes you don't understand what's going on in the movie. Why? Because you were not there in the beginning. You didn't see the script. You don't know how it's going to end. Baruch Hashem, it's our generation that we're holding at the end of the movie. Just look at Israel. We're coming back home. The land is being rebuilt. Had you been there 100 years ago, you would not have said that. No way. How could you? Swamps, few people, no roads, no nothing. How could we not see what's going on in Israel? That the prophecies are being fulfilled. And B'ezrat Hashem, the greatest prophet of all will come very soon when we see Mashiach with our own eyes.
Amen.